Hi everyone, today we're going to be walking through a process of turning our first post-harvested package into our first work in progress package of sorted trimmed material. To get started, from my active packages table, I'm going to look for my first bucked flower of orange cookies. I can select anywhere in the row, or I can select the checkbox, which will show that I have one row selected. Under Actions, we're going to use the action Split Packages, which also confirms that one package is selected. And this action is used for any time we turn one item to another item or break our item down into smaller quantities like for sale or for testing purposes. As I select split packages, that will pre-fill my source information for me here at the top left, which shows that I have 10,000 grams to use in my next packaging process. Some bulk settings here on the left will be applied to my initial first package here on the right. So starting with my starting tag, this is pre-filled by Canix with the next available tag number, which is one up from the last tag number that was used in Canix. I can always edit the last few numbers, or I can scan a different tag that's in front of me to be able to pre-fill with a different tag number. My package date will also be pre-filled, but I can select a different date from the calendar. And I can also select an expiration date if that applies to my new package. For my trim and A-buds that I'll be creating today, I don't have an expiration date, so I'm going to leave that blank. If my source package had manually uploaded lab results in Canix, I could also copy those from the source to my new packages. However, any lab results that are synced from Metric, BioTrack, or Competent Cannabis are controlled by those systems and are not controlled by this setting. As we go through this process, if I use all 10,000 grams in my source package so that there is 0 remaining, I can also finish my package in the same process, or I can do this at a later point as a separate action. And I can initially set my location for my first package that I'll be creating, and I can always change the location as I'm creating new packages. To get started, we'll start with the new packages on our right side. So here I can select anywhere in the row as you see it's being highlighted, or the name itself, and that will let me update the new package information. It's pre-filled with that tag from my bulk settings, or I can change it here. And since I'm creating a new item, I'm not breaking down my bucked flower into smaller quantities of bucked flower. I'm going to select Use Same Item so that I can search other items. Initially, it's only going to be searching items of the same strain, but I can also look across all of my items if I don't see the item I'm looking for. Maybe it's missing the strain that I have on my source. For this, my other orange cookies items that I have here are listed, so I'm going to select Bulk Trim. And then I'm not going to select an expiration date since I don't have one for my trim. If this particular package was going to be receiving new test results, then I would enter a production batch here. If you're not familiar with production batches, take a look at our video that covers items, package tags, and production batches that goes through this concept a little bit more in depth. Since it's not going to be tested quite yet, I'm going to leave this production batch blank, and I'll add this at a later point when I am going to start testing material. In this case, I'm also not going to copy my lab results from my source. One, because I don't actually have lab results on my source package, but also this new package is not going to receive those, so I'm going to deselect that option. My location was pre-filled from my bulk settings here, but I could have changed it to a different location. And for my testing package, the entire quantity of this new package is not going to a lab. Therefore, I'm not going to select testing package because I don't want this entire quantity to be locked for a lab. If I do need to test my trim, I'm going to be breaking off a smaller quantity from this package, and that will receive a testing package status. To get started with my packaged weight, I'm going to be creating 5,000 grams of trim here, and I'm also going to be pulling 5,000 grams from my source to create that 5,000 grams. That means that my new package will have 5,000 grams, and my source package will have 5,000 grams less. If I was creating more than one package of trim, I could enter the number of packages, which will create 2 packages of 5,000 grams for a total of 10,000 grams packaged. If my source package had cost on the package, then that would automatically be populated here in my cost of goods sold for this pack, and that will pre-fill with the cost proportional to the amount that I'm pulling from my package. If I don't have anything pre-filling here or I want to change the value of the cost on my package, I can always change that value if my permissions allow me to see this field. You also have an internal lot ID, which allows you to enter a batch or a harvest or any type of information that helps you identify that all of this material is part of the same lot. And since this doesn't tie to the production batch or the test results, I can enter anything that I want in this field. For this, I'm going to enter the harvest date so that I can refer back to this for any material that I create later. And then any notes that I want to apply to this package at this point, I can add now, or I can add that later. And I can also add the internal lot ID later as well. I'm going to select Update to save my initial package, and now I can create a package of A-buds in this process. I have 5,000 grams remaining to create that, so I'm going to select Add Item, which will allow me to create my new package of A-buds. I'll deselect Use Same Item, and I'll search for my A-buds item. I don't have an expiration date for my A-buds, so I'm going to leave that blank. And then my A-buds are not going to be tested yet. They'll be tested at a later point when I go to create finished goods. So I'm not going to add a production batch value here yet either. Again, I don't have any lab results to copy from my source, but I also don't want any lab results to copy if there happen to be any. So I'm going to deselect this option, and I'm going to select the location that this A-buds can be found. I'm going to select the same location as my other package, which I have listed here. So I'll select bulk storage. Again, this entire package is not going to testing, so I'm not going to select this option. But when I do create a testing package later, I'll select this later. For the packaged weight, I only got about 4,500 grams of A-buds, which means that I'm also pulling 4,500 grams from my source package. I'm only creating one package here, which means I'm only having 4,500 grams in total. And I don't have anything to change on my cost, but I do have an internal lot ID to apply, which is the same as the last one that I just did. So that way I know that they're all part of the same batch. And I'll select Update to save that information. Now that I have my two packages saved here of my A-buds and my bulk trim, I'll still have 500 grams remaining in my source package of bucked orange cookies to use at a later date, or to adjust as waste or for other purposes. At this point, I'm going to submit my two new packages, which I'll see on my active packages table. We're on our table here. We can see our two packages that we just created, 57 and 58, and we can go ahead and use those in our next step of the process or transfer them out to another facility. If you have any questions as you go through this process, don't hesitate to reach out to our support team at help@canix.com or at 415-894-9884.